Let me tell you something. Most of you don't fail because you don't have ability. You fail because you get tired. You tired of waking up early. You tired of being broke. You tired of people doubting you. You tired of giving effort and not seeing results. But listen to me. Success don't care how you feel. You can be tired and still show up. You can be hurting and still grind. You can be exhausted and still execute. Because champions don't quit when they're tired. They quit when they're done. See, everybody wants to be a beast, but don't nobody want to do what beasts do. You want the reward without the sacrifice. You want the crown without the pressure. You want the result without the process. Let me be real with you. When you're tired, that's not the signal to stop. That's the signal that you're close. The pain you're feeling, that's weakness leaving your body. If you can push when your mind says a no, your life will say yes. Don't ask for it to be easier, ask for you to be strong. Because when you quit on yourself, you teach yourself that quitting is an option. And I came to tell you today, quitting is not an option. You owe your future more effort than that. You owe your family more than excuses. You owe your dream respect. So get up, lock in, do it scared. Do it broke, do it anyway. Stop quitting when you're tired, quit when you're done. Most people don't understand this truth, and it's costing them everything. Tired is temporary, quitting is permanent. You getting tired don't mean you're weak. It don't mean you're not built for this. It means you're human. It means you're stretching beyond what you've ever done before. But somewhere along the line, society lied to you and told you that when it hurts, when it's uncomfortable, when you're exhausted, that's your cue to stop. No, that's your cue to decide who you really are. Let me break it down real simple. Tired shows up for everybody. Every athlete, every entrepreneur, every student, every parent, every leader. Nobody is exempt. You think the people you admire don't get tired? You think champions wake up every day feeling motivated, excited, energized? Absolutely not. They wake up sore. They wake up discouraged. They wake up questioning themselves. The difference is not that they don't get tired. The difference is what they do when they get tired. Tired is a feeling. Quitting is a decision. And too many people make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. You had one bad day and you ready to throw away a 10-year dream. One slow month and you ready to give up on a business you prayed for. One failure and you ready to walk away from a purpose you were born with. That don't make sense. You letting a moment cancel a destiny. Being tired just means you've been working. It means you've been showing up. It means you've been giving effort. You don't get tired sitting on the couch, doing nothing. You get tired when you pushing, when you grinding, when you pushing, when you grinding, when you stretching yourself beyond comfort. So why would you punish effort by quitting? Why would you disrespect the work you already put in by walking away just because your body or your emotions are screaming? See, tired has an expiration date. You can't sleep. You can't rest. You can recover. You can reset. But when you quit, that dream is over. That version of you dies. That opportunity closes. And no amount of rest can bring back what quitting kills. That's why quitting is dangerous. Not because it hurts right now, but because of what it steals from your future. Some of you quit quietly. You don't announce it. You don't say it out loud. You just start doing less effort, less preparation, less focus, less belief. You still show up physically, but mentally you checked out. That's quitting in disguise. And it starts the moment you decide that being tired is a good enough excuse to stop giving your best. Let me tell you something real. Tired will lie. When you're tired, your mind exaggerates pain. It tells you it's always going to be this hard. It tells you you're not cut out for this. It tells you everybody else got it easier. It tells you the sacrifice ain't worth it. And if you listen to that voice long enough, you'll talk yourself out of greatness. But that voice ain't true. That's fatigue talking. That's pressure talking. That's resistance trying to protect you from growth. Every next level demands more than the last. And your body and mind will always resist what they're not used to. That resistance don't mean stop, it means adapt. It means to grow stronger. It means you're leveling up. You ever notice that quitting always feels logical when you're tired? It always comes with good sounding reason. Need to focus on myself. Oh, this just isn't the right time. I'll come back to it later. Turns into never. And before you know it, years pass and you're wondering what happened to that fire you used to have. It didn't disappear. You smothered it with excuses. Champions understand this. Rest is allowed. Quitting is not. You can slow down without stopping. You can take a knee without leaving the field. You can cry without giving up. But somewhere you confuse rest with retreat. You thought strength meant never getting tired, when real strength is continuing despite it. Let me talk to the people who feel like they've been carrying weight alone. You tired because you've been consistent. You tired because you've been disciplined. You tired because you've been doing what other people refuse to do. And now you're looking around like, what do I have to show for it? You don't always see results immediately. Progress is often silent before it's loud. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. If you quit before the harvest, you wasted every season of planting. Tired moments test your commitment. Anybody can stay excited when things are going well. Anybody can stay focused when praise is coming in. But when it's quiet, when nobody is clapping, when the results don't match the effort, that's the Arabic meme. Arabic to Arabic key. Arabic key. Arabic leave Arabic noon. That's where you find out if this was a phase or a purpose. You got to stop letting tired moments define permanent outcome. You don't throw away a whole car because it ran out of gas. You refuel. You don't quit life because you had a hard week. You rest. But for some reason, when it comes to dreams, goals, purpose, people think fatigue means failure. No, fatigue means you've been in the fight. Quitting teaches your mind a dangerous habit. Once you quit once, it becomes easier the next time. You're training yourself to escape pressure instead of enduring, and life don't get easier. Responsibilities don't get lighter. Challenges don't disappear. So if you quit now, what you gonna do when the next hard thing shows up? Quit again. You gotta understand, your future self is watching you right now. The version of you 5 years from now is either going to thank you for pushing through this tired season or curse you for giving up. There is no neutral outcome. Every time you choose to continue while tired, you build trust with yourself. You prove to yourself that you can be relied on. That confidence can't be given. It's earned through moments like this. Some of you are tired because you're doing too much alone. That don't mean quit the mission. It means adjust the method. Ask for help. Change strategy. Get mentorship. But don't abandon the goal. Don't confuse isolation with impossibility. Even the strongest people need support, but they don't need permission to quit. And let's be honest, sometimes tired ain't physical. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's mental. You tired of being patient. Tired of waiting your turn. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being the one who always has to be strong. But listen to me carefully. Emotional tiredness still ain't a reason to quit. It's a reason to refocus, to reconnect with your why, to remember who you were before life started hitting hard. Your why has to be stronger than your weariness. If your purpose is shallow, fatigue will drown you. But if your purpose is deep, tired moments won't move you. That's why you gotta constantly remind yourself why you started. Not the surface reason, the real reason, the pain that pushed you, the people you're doing this for, the promise you made to yourself. And here's the truth nobody wants to say. Some of you are tired because you're finally doing something meaningful. Easy paths don't exhaust you like this. Comfort don't demand much. Purpose does. Growth does. Greatness does. And your body is reacting to a level of responsibility it's never carried before. You gotta stop romanticizing quitting. There's nothing noble about giving up on yourself. There is nothing peaceful about regret. People quit to escape pain, but they end up living with a deeper pain. The pain of a what if. That pain lasts way longer than exhaustion. Tight nights pass. Morning comes, strength returns, perspective changes, but quitting locks you in reality you can't undo. That's why you gotta make decisions from discipline, not emotions. Emotions change hourly. Discipline holds steady. So when you feel tired, don't ask yourself, should I quit? Ask yourself, how can I recover and continue? That question alone will change your life. It keeps the mission alive while honoring your humanity. You are allowed to be tired. You are not allowed to give up. Not on yourself, not on your calling, not on the version of you that hasn't shown up yet. That person is counting on you to endure this moment, because one day, this season that's wearing you out will be the proof that you were built for more. And you'll realize the tiredness you almost quit in was the very thing that made you unstoppable. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. But it's the truth that separates average from elite. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is emotional. Motivation shows up when it feels like it. Discipline shows up no matter what. And if you're waiting to feel motivated before you act, you already lost. Motivation is like a visitor. It knocks when it wants to. Sometimes it comes early. Sometimes it doesn't come at all. Discipline lives with you. Discipline wakes you up when your alarm goes off and your body says no. Discipline moves your feet when your emotions are dragging. Discipline keeps you working when nobody is watching, clapping, liking, or praising. Most people are addicted to motivation. They need a video. They need a video. They need a speech. They need music. They need hype. And the moment the feeling fades, the work stops. That's why the results are inconsistent. You can't build a consistent life on inconsistent feelings. Let's be real. Motivation feels good. It's exciting. It gives you a rush, but it don't last. That's how it wears off. And when it does, if you don't have discipline, you fall right back to where you started. Discipline is boring. Discipline is repetitive. Discipline don't care about your mood, and that's exactly why it works. Discipline is what you do after the motivation is gone. Discipline is choosing long-term results over short-term comfort. Discipline is saying no to what feels good now, so you can say yes to what you want later. And most people don't want that trade. They want success without sacrifice. They want results without routine. They want growth without discomfort. Let me say this clearly. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your discipline. When life hits you, when stress shows up, when fatigue kicks in, motivation disappears first. Discipline stays. Discipline is trained. Discipline is built. Discipline is earned through repetition. Every successful person you admire has one thing in common. They do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. They don't negotiate with their feelings. They don't ask their emotions for permission. They already decided who they are and how they operate. See, discipline starts with identity. Once you decide that this is who I am, your behavior follows. Athletes train even when sore because that's who they are. Leaders prepare even when tired because that's who they are. Winners execute even when uninspired because that's who they are. They don't wait for motivation to tell them what to do. Most people let feelings lead. That's backwards. Feelings are unreliable leaders. Feelings change with sleep, food, stress, weather, and opinions. Discipline leads feelings. You act first. Feelings catch up later. Motivation often comes after action, not before it. You ever notice that once you start doing the work, you feel better? That's not an accident. Momentum creates motivation. Action creates belief. Discipline creates confidence. Confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you're going to do something and you don't, you weaken your self-trust. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you strengthen it. That's discipline at work. Over time, that self-trust becomes unshakable confidence. People ask, how do I stay motivated? Wrong question. The real question is, how do I build systems so I don't need motivation? Systems beat emotions, habits beat hype, structure beats inspiration. Discipline is creating small decisions, going to bed when you said you would, waking up when the alarm goes off, doing a task even when nobody will notice. These small acts don't look impressive, but they compound. And one day, people call you lucky, talented, or gifted. They didn't see the discipline. Let's talk about pain. Discipline hurts up front. Laziness hurts later. Discipline costs you comfort now. Lack of discipline costs you dreams later. You're going to pay a price either way. The question is, which pain are you choosing? Most people choose the pain of discipline avoidance because it's invisible at first. Skipping a workout doesn't hurt immediately. Procrastinating doesn't sting right away. But over time, that pain grows. Regret grows. Missed potential grows. And one day, you look up and realize the life you want requires discipline you never built. Discipline is a muscle. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have it. You train it. You strengthen it. You start small and stay consistent. You don't wait until you feel disciplined. You become disciplined by acting disciplined. And here's the part nobody tells you. Discipline gives you freedom. People think discipline is restricted. It's not. Discipline creates option. When your body is healthy, you have freedom. When your finances are in order, you have freedom. When your skills are sharp, you have freedom. That freedom is paid for with discipline. Lack of discipline traps you. It keeps you dependent on motivation, dependent on circumstances, dependent on other people. Discipline makes you self-sufficient. You don't need perfect conditions to perform. You perform regardless. You don't need discipline in everything, just the things that matter. Your health, your craft, your mindset, your habits. Get disciplined in the areas that move your life forward, and the rest will follow. Some of you keep waiting for motivation because discipline exposes you. Motivation lets you pretend. Discipline shows the truth. Discipline shows whether you're serious or just talking. Whether you want it or just like the idea of it. Talking is easy. Posting is easy. Announcing plans is easy. Discipline is quiet. Discipline doesn't need applause. Discipline doesn't need validation. Discipline is satisfied knowing the work got done. And let me be clear. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. You'll mess up. You'll fall off. You'll miss days. Discipline is getting back on track quickly. It's not letting one mistake turn into a lifestyle. Stop making excuses for inconsistency. Stop blaming your mood. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Perfect time never shows up. Discipline creates the time. If you only work when you feel inspired, you'll live an uninspired life. If you work because it's your standard, your life will rise to that standard. Your future doesn't care how motivated you were. It cares what you repeatedly did. Results are built on repetition, not emotion. You don't need another speech. You don't need another quote. You don't need another push. You need a decision that no matter how you feel, the work gets done. Once you make that decision, life changes. Not because it gets easier, but because you get stronger. Motivation will come and go. Discipline stays. And the people who win are not the ones who feel the best. They're the ones who do the work anyway. The average people stop when it gets uncomfortable. That's the line. That's the difference. That's the moment where lives separate. Same start, same opportunities, same resources, but not the same response when pressure shows up. Average people hit resistance and take it as a sign. Great people hit resistance and take it as confirmation. See, stopping is normal. Stopping is human. Stopping is easy. Your body wants to stop. Your mind wants to stop. Your emotions beg you to stop. And average people listen. They say, that's enough. They say, I tried. It's not meant for me, and they walk away feeling justified. Great people hear the same voice and keep moving anyway. The truth is, most people don't stop because they can't go on. They stop because they don't want to feel uncomfortable anymore. They stop because progress stopped being convenient. They stop because effort stopped being exciting. They stop because the work stopped rewarding them immediately. Average people are addicted to comfort. They want progress with peace, growth without pain, success without struggle. The moment the process demands sacrifice, they start negotiating. They start looking for exits. They start explaining why this isn't the right season. Great people don't negotiate with discomfort. They expect it. They plan for it. They understand that discomfort is the cost of admission. If it doesn't hurt, stretch, challenge, or demand more of you, it's not taking you anywhere new. Pressure exposes priorities. When things are easy, everybody looks committed. When it gets hard, you see who was serious and who was just interested. Average people are interested. Great people are committed. Interest fades when it gets difficult. Commitment doesn't care how it feels. Average people stop when results slow down. Great people push when results are delayed. They understand that progress is not always visible. That effort doesn't always get immediate feedback. That sometimes you are building strength, skill, and character long before you see reward. Average people need evidence before they continue. Great people continue until the evidence shows up. That's a mindset shift. That's a different operating system. Average people let circumstances dictate effort. Great people let standards dictate behavior. They already decided what kind of person they are before the challenge arrives. So when the challenge shows up, the decision is already made. See, pushing isn't about force. It's about refusal. Refusal to quit. Refusal to give in. Refusal to let a bad moment define a whole journey. Great people don't always move fast, but they don't stop moving. Average people see pain as a warning. Great people see pain as information. Pain says something is changing. Something is being tested. Something is growing. Great people ask, oh, what is this teaching me? Average people ask, how do I make this stop? And don't get it twisted. Great people feel the same pain. They get tired. They get frustrated. They get discouraged. The difference is they don't let those feelings drive the car. Feelings sit in the back seat. Purpose stays in the driver's seat. Average people quit in private and explain it later. Great people suffer in silence and let results speak. You ever notice how average people always have reasons? Good reasons, logical reasons, responsible reasons. But at the end of the day, reasons don't change outcomes. Reasons don't build legacies. Reasons don't move the needle. Great people don't spend time justifying why they stopped. They spend time figuring out how to keep going. Average people stop when the work stops being fun. Great people push when the work becomes work. They don't confuse passion with ease. Passion doesn't mean it's always enjoyable. Passion means it's worth enduring. There's a moment in every journey where motivation dies, where excitement fades, where the newness wears off. That's where average people disappear. They were in love with the feeling, not the process. Great people fall in love with the process. They learn to respect the grind. Greatness is built in the push, not the start, not the announcement, not the plan. In the push, the extra rep, the extra hour, the extra try when quitting would be reasonable. Average people stop at the first sign of doubt. Great people push through uncertainty. They don't need guarantees. They move on belief, discipline, and vision. They understand that clarity often comes after commitment, not before it. Average people ask, oh, what if it doesn't work? Great people ask, what if I stop too soon? That question changes everything. Average people stop when nobody is watching. Great people push hardest when nobody is watching because they don't perform for applause. They prepare for opportunity. Pressure reveals habits. Under pressure, average people default to comfort. Great people default to training. That's why discipline matters. That's why standards matter. You don't rise in pressure. You reveal who you are. Average people want balance before they earn momentum. Great people build momentum first, then create balance. They understand season. They know there's a time to grind and a time to breathe. Average people want breathing room before they've done the work. Average people stop when they feel overwhelmed. Great people break things down and keep moving. They don't need to see the whole staircase. They take the next step, then the next, then the next. Stopping feels good in the moment. Relief is immediate. That's why average people do it. But release short-lived, regret lasts long. Great people are willing to endure temporary discomfort to avoid permanent disappointment. Average people let fear slow them down. Great people push while afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's movement in spite of it. Great people don't wait to feel brave. They act and bravery catches up.
What's up, okay?
Average people stop when they compare themselves to others. Great people stay locked in on their own lane. They don't measure progress by someone else's timeline. They respect their journey enough to stay focused. Comparison drains energy. Focus fuels progress. Average people stop when feedback hurts. Great people push and use feedback to sharpen themselves. They don't take correction as disrespect. They take it as refinement. Average people stop when they fail. Great people study the failure and keep going. Failure doesn't scare them. Stagnation does. Let me tell you something important. Pushing doesn't mean destroying yourself. It means staying engaged. It means staying intentional. It means refusing to mentally check out. You can adjust pace. You can change strategy. You can ask for help, but you don't quit. Average people mistake fatigue for incapability. Great people understand fatigue is part of the process. They don't label themselves based on temporary weakness. Average people stop because they want peace. Great people push because they want purpose. And purpose gives a deeper kind of peace, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't quit on yourself. You don't accidentally become great. Greatness is a series of pushes, small pushes, daily pushes, invisible pushes. And those pushes stack up. Average people live for relief. Great people live for results. Every time you push when you want to stop, you separate yourself. Every time you keep going when it would be easier to quit, you widen the gap. That gap is called excellence. Most people never find out how strong they are because they stop too early. They quit at the edge of their potential. Great people push past that edge and discover a version of themselves they didn't know existed. That's why they look different. That's why they move different. That's why they think different. Not because they're special, but because they refuse to stop where others did. Average people stop at pain. Great people push through it and come out changed. And that push, that decision to keep going when everything says stop, that's where greatness lives. That pain is not a punishment. That's where most people get it wrong. You feel pain and immediately think something is wrong. Something is broken, something needs to stop. But pain is not your enemy. Pain is information. Pain is feedback. Pain is the receipt that proves you paid for growth. Progress costs something, always has, always will, and pain is the currency. You don't get stronger without resistance. You don't grow without stretch. You don't level up without pressure. Every upgrade in your life is going to demand a version of you that you haven't been yet. And that transition is uncomfortable. That discomfort is called pain. The problem is we live in a culture that worships comfort. If it hurts, avoid it. If it's hard, quit. If it feels heavy, drop it. And that mindset creates weak results because progress does not live in comfort zones. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die slowly. Pain shows up the moment you decide to change. Decide to discipline yourself. Pain shows up. Decide to break bad habits. Pain shows up. Decide to chase purpose instead of pleasure. Pain shows up, not because you're doing the wrong thing, but because you're doing something different. Your body, your mind, your environment, they all resist change. Pain is the resistance pushing back. If there's no resistance, there's no transformation. Think about it. Muscles only grow when fibers tear. Bones only get denser under stress. Skill only develops through failure and correction. Confidence only forms after fear is confronted. Pain is built into the process. You can't remove it without removing progress itself. But average people see pain and panic. They label it as a sign to stop. Great people see pain and recalibrate. They ask, is this pain productive or destructive? Productive pain means you're growing. Destructive pain means you're ignoring wisdom. The key is not avoiding pain, it's understanding it. Most people quit because they don't know the difference between pain that builds and pain that breaks. And instead of learning, they run. They escape. They go back to what's familiar, even if it's unfulfilling. Progress pain feels like doubt. It feels like frustration. It feels like fatigue. It feels like being misunderstood. It feels like failing in public. It feels like sacrificing short-term pleasure for long-term results. And most people are not willing to pay that price. Everybody wants the results. Nobody wants the receipt. They want confidence, but not the rejection. They want strength, but not the soreness. They want success, but not the sacrifice. That math doesn't work. Pain is the toll booth on the road to progress. You either pay it or you turn around. Let's be honest. Some of you are tired of hurting, tired of pushing, tired of feeling like you're always the one sacrificing. And that's real. Pain wears you down if you don't understand why it's there. That's why purpose matters. Purpose gives pain meaning. Without purpose, pain feels pointless. With purpose, pain feels temporary. When you know why you're hurting, you can endure almost anything. Pain exposes commitment. When it gets uncomfortable, you find out how bad you really want it, not what you say, not what you post, what you're willing to endure. Everybody wants to shine, but nobody wants to be refined. Refinement hurts. It strips you. It humbles you. It forces you to confront weaknesses you've been avoiding. But refinement is what turns raw potential into real power. Pain also has a way of removing illusions. It shows you what matters. It reveals what you're made of. It burns off excuses. When pain hits, all the fake stuff falls away. That's why pain is a teacher, a hard one, but an honest one. You don't learn discipline and comfort. You learn it when you don't feel like showing up and you do anyway. You don't learn patience when things are fast. You learn it when progress is slow. You don't learn resilience when life is smooth. You learn it when life punches back. Pain introduces you to yourself. Some of you are meeting parts of yourself you've never met before because you're finally doing something meaningful, and that scares you. Growth feels unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity feels like danger, but it's not danger. It's development. Let me tell you something important. Avoiding pain does not eliminate pain. It postpones it. The pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later. the pain of growth now or the pain of stagnation later, you will pay. The only choice is when and how. Regret is a heavier pain than effort. Progress pain asks something of you up front. Regret pain collects interest over time. That's why people who avoid pain early end up carrying heavier pain later. Missed opportunities, unfulfilled potential. What if conversations that never end? Pain also demands focus. When something hurts, you pay attention. That's why growth accelerates under pressure. Pressure forces clarity. It forces prioritization. It forces you to drop what doesn't matter and lock in on what does. Comfort makes you careless. Pain makes you precise. But here's where people mess up. They try to numb pain instead of navigating. They distract themselves. They entertain themselves. They medicate themselves with comfort. And in doing so, they delay progress. Pain is meant to be felt, not feared. Felt, processed, learned from. You don't have to love pain. You just have to respect it. Every next level has a different pain requirement. What hurt you at level 1 won't hurt you at level 3. You adapt. You grow calluses. What once broke you becomes manageable. That's how you know you're progressing. Pain is not permanent. Progress is cumulative. But quitting resets the pain cycle. You quit, rest, feel better temporarily, then start something new and face the same pain again. New goal, same resistance. New dream, same discomfort. Because the pain isn't the problem. Your relationship with it is. Once you accept pain as part of progress, it loses its power over you. It no longer scares you into stopping. It becomes a signal. You're in the work, you stop asking, why does this hurt? And start asking, what is this building? And let me be clear, this is not about glorifying suffering. Pain without direction is just suffering. Pain with intention is progress. You don't seek pain for pain's sake. You accept it as the cause of becoming who you said you wanted to be. Some of you keep praying for progress but complaining about pain. You can't separate the two. They come as a package deal. Progress will demand early mornings that hurt, late nights that hurt, sacrifices that hurt, conversations that hurt, loneliness that hurts. But that pain is shaping something in you that comfort never could. You're being built for something heavier, something bigger, something that requires strength you didn't have before. Pain toughens you, but it also humbles you. It reminds you that you're still growing, still learning, still becoming. And that humility keeps you teachable. People who never accept pain stop learning. They plateau. They get comfortable. They get entitled. Pain keeps you sharp. And one more thing, pain doesn't last forever, but quitting teaches your mind to escape. Enduring pain teaches your mind to adapt. That adaptation becomes resilience, and resilience, priceless. There will come a day when the pain you're in right now won't even register. You'll look back and realize it was a small price for the strength, wisdom, and confidence you gained. But you won't see that if you quit early. Pain is not here to stop you. It's here to shape you. Every time you push through pain with purpose, you raise your threshold. You expand your capacity. You become harder to break. And that's progress. Not painless, not pretty, but powerful. Most people talk too much and work too little. They want to be heard before they've been proven. They want recognition before results. They want a microphone before they've earned a voice. But in the real world, the grind speaks first, long before you explain yourself, long before you announce your plans, long before you defend who you are. Your grind walks into rooms before you do. When you've been putting in real work, you don't need introductions. People already know what you bring. Your reputation shows up ahead of you. Your consistency makes the announcement unnecessary. While others are explaining, you're executing. While others are convincing, you're delivering. See, talking is cheap. Everybody has plans. Everybody has plans. Everybody has intentions. Everybody has potential. But grind turns potential into proof. And proof is live without saying a word. People can hear excuses all day. They've heard promises before. What they haven't seen is discipline over time. They haven't seen someone show up when it's boring. They haven't seen someone stay consistent when nobody's watching. That's why grind stands out. It's rare. Your grind introduces you because it builds trust. And trust is built through repetition, not persuasion. When people see you do the work day after day, they stop asking questions. They stop doubting. They stop wondering if you're serious. The work answers for you. Too many people want to explain why they deserve a seat at the table. Grind doesn't explain. It earns. Grind doesn't ask. It proves. Grind doesn't negotiate, it delivers. When you grind in silence, people start speaking your name in rooms you've never been in. Opportunities start moving toward you without you chasing them, not because you begged, not because you posted, because your work traveled. Your grind becomes your resume. Not what you said you would do, not what you almost did, what you actually did consistently. People respect what they can rely on. They respect what shows up. They respect what performs under pressure. And grind is performance over time. You ever notice how the hardest workers don't talk much about what they're doing? They don't need to. They're too busy doing it. Meanwhile, the loudest people are often the least productive. Noise becomes a substitute for results. Grind is quiet. Grind is lonely. Grind doesn't get likes at first, but grind compounds. And when it's time, it speaks louder than any announcement ever could. When you walk into a room with real grind behind you, the energy shifts. People listen differently. They ask different questions. They give you space to speak because they already know you're not wasting their time. That's the power of grind. It changes how people perceive you before you say a word. You don't have to tell people you're disciplined. Your habits show it. You don't have to tell people you're reliable. Your consistency proves it. You don't have to tell people you're serious. Your sacrifice confirms it. Your grind introduces you as someone who finishes, someone who follows through, someone who doesn't need hype to perform. But here's the part people don't like. Grind takes time, and most people don't want to wait. They want instant respect, instant validation, instant authority. But authority comes from evidence, and evidence takes time to build. So instead of grinding, people start marketing themselves too early. They try to look successful instead of becoming successful. They confuse visibility with value. And eventually, that catches up with them. Because when pressure hits, image collapses. But grind holds. Grind builds credibility when nobody's clapping. It builds skill when nobody's praising. It builds character when nobody's watching. And when the lights finally come on, you're not nervous, you're ready. Your grind also protects you. When criticism comes, and it will, you don't have to defend yourself emotionally. The work defends you. You don't argue, you don't explain, you point to results, and results in conversation. That's why grind gives you confidence. Not fake confidence, earned confidence. Kind that doesn't shake when people doubt you. Because you're not guessing what you're capable of, you've lived it. People who don't grind need validation. People who grind trust their process. And let's be clear, grind isn't just working hard when it's convenient. Grind is working when you're tired, when you're overlooked, when progress is slow, when nobody's noticing. Grind is choosing consistency over comfort. That kind of grind changes how people talk about you. They stop saying, trying. They start saying, different. They stop saying, let's see. They start saying, I'll give them a shot. Your grind creates leverage. Opportunities don't come from potential. They come from performance. And performance is the product of grind. People want shortcuts to respect. There aren't any. Respect is rented by talking, but it's owned by working. And once you own it, nobody can take it from you. Your grind also introduces you to yourself. It shows you who you are under pressure. Who you are when it's hard. Who you are when quitting would be easy. That self-knowledge becomes strength. You move differently when you know you've earned where you stand. No imposter syndrome, no insecurity, no fear of being exposed because the grind already exposed you and you survived it. When you've done the work, you don't need to prove yourself in conversations. You don't need to dominate the room. You don't need to be the loudest voice. Presence speaks, calm speaks, preparation speaks. Your grind makes introductions unnecessary because people feel it. But grind has to be real. Not busy work, not fake hustle. Real grind is spoken, intentional, aligned with a purpose. You can be busy and still be average. Grind is about progress, not motion. And progress leaves a trail. People can track it. They can verify it. They can trust it. That's why grind builds reputation. Reputation is simply what people expect from you based on what you've repeatedly done. And when your reputation is strong, doors open faster. You don't chase opportunities. Opportunities recognize you. But here's the catch. Grind doesn't announce itself when you start. It introduces you when you're ready. And that waiting period is where most people quit. They think nothing is happening because nothing is public. They don't realize the introduction is being prepared every early morning, every late night, every sacrifice. Every time you showed up instead of slept in, it's all building a name that speaks for you. People who quit early never get that introduction. They stay explaining themselves forever. New plan, new story, new excuse, same results. Grind gives you consistency of identity. You become known for something, reliable, solid, dependable, dangerous in a good way. And when people know that about you, conversations change, negotiations change, you don't get change, you don't get micromanaged, you don't get doubted, you don't get overlooked the same way. Because your grind already set the tone. And let me say this, grind doesn't mean perfection. It means persistence. And people don't respect flawless, they respect resilience. They respect someone who gets back up, someone who adapts, someone who learns and keeps moving. That's grind. Grind also humbles you. It teaches you patience. It teaches you that nothing meaningful comes overnight. That humility makes you coachable, and coachable people grow faster. When your grind introduces you, it doesn't say you're better than anyone. It says you're prepared. And preparation earns trust. So stop trying to be impressive with words. Be impressive with consistency. Stop trying to convince people. Let time and effort do the talking. If your grind is strong enough, you won't need to tell people who you are. They'll already know. Your grind will introduce you in rooms you never knew existed. Your grind will speak when you're not there. Your grind will defend you when you're questioned. Your grind will open doors your mouth never could. And the best part, when the introduction finally happens, you won't be surprised. You'll be ready. Because you've been working for it long before anyone noticed. That's the power of grinding till excuses sound good. That's why people use them. They're smooth, they're reasonable, they make you feel better in the moment. They protect your ego, they help you sleep at night. But let me tell you something straight. Excuses don't move anything forward. They don't change your situation. They don't open doors, they don't create results. And they definitely don't pay. You can have the best excuse in the world and still be broke. You can have the most logical explanation and still be stuck. You can be absolutely right about why something didn't work and still lose. Life does not reward explanation. It rewards execution. Most people don't lack reasons. They lack results. And excuses are the gap between potential and performance. Every time you make an excuse, you give yourself permission to stay the same. You turn a temporary obstacle into a permanent condition. Excuses are sneaky. They don't come dressed as weakness. They come dressed as responsibility, realism, and self-care. Well, I'm just being honest. Well, I'm protecting my peace. It's not the right time. Sounds mature. Sounds smart. Sounds justified. But underneath that language is avoidance. Excuses are how people avoid discomfort without admitting they're afraid of it. Here's the truth most people won't accept. Everybody has a reason to quit. Everybody has a reason to slow down. Everybody has a reason to give less than their best. The question isn't whether your excuse is valid. Well, the question is whether it's productive. An excuse can be true and still useless. You might really be tired. You might really be stressed. You might really have a rough background. You might really be dealing with setbacks. All of that can be true, and none of it changes the requirement. The work still has to get done. Excuses feel good because they shift responsibility away from you. They let you blame circumstances, people, timing, or luck. And the moment you shift responsibility, you give up power because you can't control what you don't own. Results only respond to ownership. People who make excuses feel temporarily relieved. People who take responsibility feel temporarily pressured. But pressure produces growth. Relief produces stagnation. Excuses are expensive. You just don't see the bill right away. They cost you opportunities you never applied for. Growth you never experienced. Skills you never developed. Confidence you never built. One day the bill shows up as regret, and regret doesn't negotiate. Excuses also become habits. The first one is hard. The 10th one is automatic. Eventually you don't even hear yourself doing it. It becomes your default response to challenge. Something gets hard, excuse. Something goes wrong, excuse. Something doesn't go your way, excuse. So slowly your standards drop. Your effort drops. Your expectations shrink. Not because you couldn't do more, but because you talked yourself out of trying. Excuses keep you emotionally comfortable and financially uncomfortable, spiritually stagnant, mentally small. Because growth requires friction and excuses remove friction. Let's be real. Excuses don't fool successful people. They hear them all day. They made them before. They know exactly what they sound like. When someone gives an excuse, what they hear isn't a priority. Because when something is truly a priority, excuses disappear. You don't make excuses for what you value. You make adjustments. People don't make excuses for eating. They don't make excuses for sleeping. They don't make excuses for checking their phone. Why? Because those things matter to them. So when you keep making excuses, you're revealing your priorities, whether you want to or not. Excuses also rob you of credibility. The more you explain why something didn't happen, the less people trust that it will happen next time. At some point, explanations stop sounding informative and start sounding predictable. People stop asking what you're going to do and start assuming what you want. And that's dangerous. Excuses might protect your image today, but they destroy your reputation tomorrow. Because reputation isn't built on intentions, it's built on outcome. Nobody remembers what you meant to do, they remember what you did. Excuses are comfortable because they don't require change. Responsibility does. Responsibility forces you to look at yourself honestly, your habits, your discipline, your consistency, and that's uncomfortable. But discomfort is the entry fee for growth. Excuses are easy because they don't require courage. Accountability does. And here's the part people avoid. Excuses don't just lie to others, they lie to you. They make you believe you're doing better than you are. They give you a false sense of progress. They make you feel like you're still in the game when you've actually stopped moving. You can be busy making excuses and still be standing still. Every excuse you accept becomes a ceiling. It limits how far you're willing to go. It defines what you think is possible for you, and once you internalize an excuse, it becomes part of your identity. I'm just not good at that. I've always struggled with consistency. I'm not built like that. Those aren't facts. Those are repeated excuses that harden into beliefs, and beliefs shape behavior. Excuses also kill urgency. They make you feel like there's always more time, like you can start tomorrow, like you can start tomorrow, like you can fix it later. But later is not guaranteed. Energy is not guaranteed. Opportunities are not guaranteed. Time doesn't care about your reasons. The world doesn't slow down because you had a hard week. The market doesn't pause because you weren't ready. Life keeps moving, and excuses don't keep up. People who win don't have fewer problems. They have fewer excuses. They don't waste energy explaining why something is hard. They put that energy into figuring out how to do it anyway. They don't ask, who's to blame? They ask, what's the move? Excuses focus on the path. Solutions focus on the next step. And let me say this clearly. Taking responsibility doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means being honest. It means saying, this is on me, and because it's on me, I can change it. That's power. Excuses keep you small because they make you a victim. Responsibility makes you dangerous because it makes you adaptable. You might not control everything that happens to, but you control how you respond, and your response determines your results. Excuses don't get rewarded. Effort does. Discipline does. Consistency does. The world pays for value, not reasons. You don't get paid because it was hard. You get paid because you delivered. You don't get promoted because you were overwhelmed. You get promoted because you perform. You don't get respect because you try. You get respect because you follow through. Because you follow through. And the harsh truth is this: nobody owes you understanding. They owe you an opportunity. What you do with it is on you. Excuses also block learning. When you blame something external, you stop examining what you could have done better. You missed a lesson. And when you miss the lesson, you repeat the situation. Same problem, different year. People who refuse to make excuses get better faster because they're constantly adjusting. They're constantly refining. They're constantly improving. They don't protect their ego. They protect their progress. Excuses protect pride. Responsibility builds character. And character lasts longer than confidence. Confidence can disappear when results slow down. Character keeps you moving when confidence is gone. Excuses don't survive pressure. They collapse. When real responsibility hits, family, finances, legacy, excuses stop working. Reality doesn't accept them. Bills don't care why you're late. Deadlines don't care how tired you were. Opportunities don't care how unfair it felt. Only outcomes matter. And here's the thing. Once you stop making excuses, your life speeds up. Progress accelerates. Clarity sharpens. Because now all your energy is going into execution instead of explanation. You stop telling stories and start building proof. You stop defending yourself and start developing yourself. You stop talking about what you want and start doing what it takes. That's when things change. Not because life got easier, but because you got honest. Excuses will always be available. Always. There will never be a shortage of reasons not to do the work. The difference is whether you accept them or reject them. You don't need a perfect situation. You don't need ideal condition. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need results. And excuses don't pay. Effort does. Discipline does. Consistency does. Everything else is just noise. Excuses are attractive because they give you comfort without requiring change. They wrap failure in logic. They soften disappointment. They make lack of results feel acceptable. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. Because while excuses make you feel better emotionally, they leave your life exactly where it is. Excuses don't challenge you. They don't stretch you. They don't demand more from you. They let you stay the same and call it wisdom. But the truth is simple and unforgiving. Excuses don't pay. They don't pay your bills. They don't build your future. They don't create momentum. They don't change outcomes. You can explain your situation perfectly and still be stuck in it. Life does not reward effort explained. Rewards effort applied. Most people think their excuse is special. They think their situation is unique. They think if people really understood what they're dealing with, they'd be exempt. But pressure doesn't care about context. Results don't care about backstory. The world measures output, not obstacles. You don't get paid for how hard it was. You get paid for what you produced. Excuses feel justified because they're often rooted in truth. You might actually be tired. You might actually be overwhelmed. You might actually be dealing with real problems. But truth doesn't automatically equal permission. Something can be real and still not be an excuse to stop. That's the part people avoid. Excuses shift focus away from responsibility. And the moment responsibility leaves, power leaves with it. When everything is someone else's fault or something else's fault, you've officially made yourself powerless because you can't change what you don't own. Ownership is uncomfortable. Excuses are soothing. That's why most people choose excuses. Excuses protect your ego. They allow you to fail without feeling inadequate. They give you a story that makes quitting feel intelligent instead of emotional. They let you say, I could have, instead of facing the reality that you didn't. And I could have is one of the most expensive phrases a person can live with. Excuses also delay growth. They don't stop time. They waste it. While you're explaining why now isn't the right time, time is moving anyway. While you're justifying why you couldn't show up, opportunities are passing by people who did. Time doesn't negotiate. Time doesn't listen. Time doesn't care. Excuses convince you that tomorrow is guaranteed, that you can always start later, that there will always be another chance with the same energy, the same focus, the same hunger. That's a lie. Energy fades, windows close, seasons change, and excuses never age well. What sounds reasonable at 25 sounds tragic at 45. Excuses also become identity. At first, you say them. Commitment says, oh, no matter what, this gets done. Excuses say only if conditions are right. Conditions are rarely right. That's why excuses don't produce momentum. Momentum is built when you act despite conditions, not because of them. People who eliminate excuses move faster, not because life is easier for them, but because they stop wasting time explaining why something didn't happen and start focusing on making something happen next. Execution speeds up when explanation slows down. And here's the hard part. Nobody owes you patience with your excuses. They might offer it, it might show grace. But eventually, grace runs out when results don't show up. The world doesn't punish excuses, it ignores them silently. No announcements, no warnings, just missed chances. Excuses also weaken your ability to lead because leadership requires ownership. People don't follow explanation. They follow consistency. They follow action. They follow results. If you can't hold yourself accountable, nobody trusts you to hold anything else. Excuses might make today easier, but they make tomorrow harder. Because every time you excuse yourself out of effort, you make future effort heavier. Discipline gets harder the longer you avoid it. But once you stop making excuses, something shifts. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. You start seeing progress, small wins. Momentum, confidence, not the fake kind, the earned kind. The kind that comes from knowing you didn't talk your way out of discomfort. Excuses don't disappear on their own. You have to confront them. You have to call them out. You have to stop romanticizing them. Stop defending them. Stop identifying with them. You don't need perfect circumstance. You don't need more understanding. You don't need permission. You need action. Because excuses sound good in conversation, but results speak louder everywhere else. And at the end of the day, nobody is paid for what they went through. They're paid for what they delivered. Most people hear that phrase and misunderstand it. They think it means destroy yourself, ignore your health, never rest, never breathe. That's not what it means. What it means is this: you don't prioritize comfortable commitment. You don't treat rest like a reward you haven't earned yet. You don't lay down in the middle of a mission and call it balance. You sleep when the work is finished means you understand season. There is a season to grind and a season to recover. And the problem with most people is not that they rest too little. It's that they rest too early. They get tired before they get disciplined. They get comfortable before they get consistent. They want rest before they've earned momentum. And momentum is fragile. You don't interrupt it casually. You don't stop in the middle of building something important just because you're uncomfortable. You finish the task. You finish the task. You finish the day strong. Then you rest with peace instead of guilt, because there's a big difference between rest that restores you and rest that delays you. Most people aren't tired from doing too much. They're tired from doing too little of what actually matters. They're exhausted because they're scattered, undisciplined, starting and stopping, half committed, mentally negotiating every task. That kind of fatigue comes from inconsistency, not effort. When you lock in, when you commit fully, your energy sharpens, your focus improves. You stop wasting mental energy debating whether or not you should do the work. You already decided. Sleep comes easier when you know you didn't cheat the day. You can sleep when the work is finished. It's about urgency. It's about understanding that opportunities have windows. Not everything lasts forever. Not every chance waits for you to feel ready. Some doors only stay open for people who are willing to push when it's inconvenient. You don't tell opportunity, hold on, I'm tired. You meet opportunity with preparation. There are moments in life where average effort will not cut it, where normal hours won't get it done, where balance is not the goal, breakthrough is. And if you treat those moments casually, you miss them. Greatness requires seasons of imbalance. Every high achiever understands this. Athletes train harder, closer to competition. Entrepreneurs grind harder during startup phase. Students lock in during final. Parents sacrifice sleep for newborns. You don't call that unhealthy, you call it necessary. The problem is people want championship results with regular season effort. They want to clock out emotionally while still expecting extraordinary outcomes. You can sleep when the work is finished means you respect the assignment. You recognize when something matters enough to demand extra from you. And instead of complaining about the cost, you pay it. Not forever, not recklessly, but intentionally. Average people rest at the first sign of discomfort. Great people push until the task is complete. They don't leave loose ends. They don't have finished important work. They understand that unfinished work drains you more than hard work ever will. Unfinished work sits in your mind. It follows you to bed. It steals peace. Completion brings rest. You sleep better when you know you handle business. This mindset is also about priorities. You make time for what matters by taking it from what doesn't. Late night scrolling, endless entertainment, casual distractions. Those are the things that steal sleep, not purpose-driven work. People say they're tired, but they're energized enough for everything except their goals. You can sleep when the work is finished calls that out. It says, stop giving your best energy to things that don't move your life forward, then claiming you're too tired for the things that do. Energy follows import. When something really matters to you, you find a way to show up. When it doesn't, you find an excuse. This mindset is also about mental toughness. Your body will quit before you need to. Your mind will ask for rest before the job is done. And if you always listen to that voice, you'll never discover your true capacity. You don't know how much you can handle until you stay a little longer, push a little harder, focus a little deeper. That extra effort when you want to stop but don't is where growth happens. Average people stop when they're tired. Great people stop when the task is complete. That doesn't mean ignoring warning signs. It means not mistaking discomfort for danger. It means learning the difference between fatigue and inability. Most of the time, you're not incapable. You're just uncomfortable. And comfort is not the standard. You can sleep when the work is finished. Also build self-respect, because nothing kills confidence like knowing you consistently choose comfort over commitment. Nothing builds confidence like knowing you showed up when it would have been easier not to. That confidence carries into everything else. You walk differently. You speak differently. You handle pressure differently because you trust yourself. People who constantly prioritize rest over responsibility don't trust themselves. Deep down, they know they avoid hard things. And that self-doubt shows up when it matters. Discipline builds trust. Trust builds confidence. Confidence builds results. This mindset also protects you from procrastination. Procrastination is just delayed discomfort. You don't avoid the work, you postpone the pain. And when you do that, the work piles up, the stress multiplies, and the rest you took wasn't even enjoyable. Real rest is earned rest. When the work is finished, rest feels different. It's peaceful, it's deep, it's deserved. You're not scrolling to escape guilt. You're recovering to prepare for the next assignment. People who rest too early never fully rest. Their mind is always half working, half avoiding. Completion clears the mind. You can sleep when the work is finished. It's also about legacy. Nobody remembers how well rested you were. They remember what you built, what you finished, what you followed through on. History doesn't reward comfort. It records contribution. There will be plenty of time to rest later, but there will never be another chance to redo today. You don't get this moment back. You don't get this energy back. You don't get this season back. That doesn't mean burnout. It means don't waste time. Burnout comes from lack of purpose, not hard work. When the work is meaningful, effort energizes you. It's when you're grinding without direction that exhaustion takes over. Purpose fuels endurance. This mindset also forces honesty. You can't hide behind the self-care. What you really mean is avoidance. You can't pretend you're tired when you've been distracted all day. It makes you confront how you actually spend your time. And that awareness is uncomfortable, but necessary. Or you can sleep when the work is finished doesn't mean neglect your health. It means stop using comfort as a shield against growth. It means recognizing when you're making excuses versus making wise decisions. Rest is strategic. Quitting is emotional. The people who win know when to push and when to pause, but they never pause in the middle of a commitment. They finish first, then they recover. They don't abandon the mission because it's inconvenient. This mindset separates people who dabble from people who dominate. Dabblers stop when it gets hard. Dominators stay until it's done. And here's the truth. Most people don't need more rest. They need more resolve. They need to raise their standard. They need to stop negotiating with temporary feeling. Sleep is necessary, but purpose comes first. When the work is unfinished, rest feels like escape. When the work is finished, rest feels like reward. That difference changes everything. This principle isn't about being extreme. Being intentional, about knowing when to lean in instead of leaning back. About respecting moments that demand more from you. There are seasons in life where you grind. There are seasons where you recover. But if you reverse them, if you rest before you build, you end up tired anyway, just without results. Finish the work, then sleep. And when you wake up stronger. Not because you avoided effort, but because you honored it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. That's not just a saying. That's a reality check. That's the reason most people stay average. Because the path to anything meaningful is intentionally hard. Difficulty is the filter. It's designed to separate those who want comfort from those who want change. Easy attracts crowds, hard attracts commitment. Everybody wants the reward, but very few people want the resistance that comes with it. If success was simple, it wouldn't be valuable. If discipline was comfortable, it wouldn't be rare. If greatness was convenient, it wouldn't be respected. The reason your goal feels heavy is because it's not meant for everybody. People quit and say, it shouldn't be this hard. But who told you it wouldn't be? Who convinced you that becoming more than average would feel normal? Growth is uncomfortable by design. The difficulty is proof you're not doing something ordinary. Easy paths don't change lives, they maintain them. When something is easy, it requires no transformation. You don't have to become someone new to stay the same. That's why easy feels good, but leads nowhere. Hard forces evolution. That's why most people turn back. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't want to become the person it requires them to be. Hard demands discipline. Hard demands patience. Hard demands sacrifice. And sacrifice exposes priorities. People say they want success, but their actions reveal they want comfort more. Because the moment it gets hard, they hesitate. They start questioning the goal. They start blaming timing. They start negotiating with themselves. Hard moments don't create doubt, they reveal it. If it was easy, there would be no fear, no uncertainty, no risk. And without risk, there's no growth. The struggle isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. Hard weeds out excuses. Easy lets them survive. Easy allows you to stay undisciplined and still get by. Hard doesn't. Hard demands structure, focus, consistency. That's why people avoid it. Not because it's impossible, but because it exposes their habits. Hard doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your execution. Most people want proof before commitment. They want guarantees before effort. But hard doesn't work like that. Hard asks you to move first, to believe first, to commit before clarity. That's uncomfortable. That's scary. That's why most people don't do it. If it was easy, procrastination wouldn't exist. If it was easy, fear wouldn't show up. If it was easy, discipline wouldn't be necessary. And without discipline, nothing meaningful lasts. Hard creates standards. Easy lowers them. When something is hard, you have to decide who you are. Are you someone who keeps going or someone who stops when it hurts? Easy never forces that decision. Hard makes you choose. That choice defines you. Hard also builds respect. People don't respect what comes easy. They respect what costs something. They respect effort, consistency, endurance. They respect people who didn't quit when quitting made sense. Nobody claps for easy. Nobody tells stories about the path with no obstacles. Stories are always about the struggle, the setback, the moment where giving up was an option but wasn't chosen. That's because hard moments create identity. If it was easy, confidence wouldn't mean anything. Confidence built on ease collapses under pressure. Confidence built through hard seasons doesn't shake because it's earned. Easy confidence is loud. Earned confidence is calm. Hard teaches patience. Easy feeds entitlement. When things come too quickly, people expect everything to come that way.
And the moment it doesn't, they panic. Hard trains you to wait without quitting. Waiting is a skill. Hard also teaches focus.
You can't be distracted and survive difficult. Hard demands attention. Easy allows laziness. Easy lets you multitask your life away. Hard forces you to lock in. That's why hard makes you sharper. If it was easy, everybody would finish. But most people start strong and fade fast. Because excitement gets them moving, but only discipline keeps them going. Easy doesn't require discipline. Hard does. And discipline scares people. Discipline removes excuses. Discipline exposes priorities. Discipline reveals character. That's why people run from it. Hard doesn't let you hide behind talent. Talent works on easy paths. Hard requires work ethic. And work ethic can't be fake. Hard also demands humility. You have to admit you don't know everything. You have to be willing to learn, to fail, to adjust. Easy lets you stay arrogant. Hard humbles you, and humility is the doorway to growth. If it was easy, failure wouldn't teach you anything. But hard makes failure unavoidable, and failure becomes feedback. Shows you where you're weak, where you need to improve, where you need to grow. Easy never challenges weaknesses. Hard forces improvement. That's why hard is valuable. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they quit during the hard part. They quit during the boring part. They quit during the part where results are invisible. They quit because they thought it would feel better than it does. But hard doesn't care about expectation. Hard also isolates you. When the road gets difficult, crowds disappear. Friends stop cheering. Support gets quiet. And that's where most people turn back, because they don't want to walk alone. But lonely paths often lead to unique destinations. If it was easy, everyone would stay. But the fact that people leave is what creates space at the top. Hard makes room. Hard builds resilience. Easy builds dependence. When things are always smooth, you never learn how to handle adversity. Hard trains you to stay composed under pressure. Pressure is not optional in life. Preparation is. Hard prepares you. Hard also forces clarity. When things get tough, you find out what really matters. You drop distractions. You simplify. You prioritize. Easy lets you stay scattered. Hard demands alignment. Alignment produces power. If it was easy, effort wouldn't mean anything. But because it's hard, effort becomes meaningful. Every step forward carries weight. Every sacrifice counts. That's why success feels different when it's earned. You walk differently. You think differently. You value it differently. Easy success is fragile. Hard-earned success is durable. Hard doesn't promise fairness. It doesn't promise speed. It doesn't promise recognition. That's why people quit. They want assurance. Hard offers none. It only offers possibility. And possibility requires courage. If it was easy, courage wouldn't be rare. But it is. Because most people avoid situations where courage is required. They stay where it's safe, predictable, manageable. But nothing extraordinary is built in safe spaces. Hard also demands consistency. You can't do hard things occasionally and expect results. You have to show up repeatedly, even when you're tired, even when you're discouraged, even when nothing is happening. That's why people stop. They don't see immediate returns, but hard compounds slowly, quietly, until one day it shows up all at once. Easy never compounds. It just passes time. If it was easy, excuses wouldn't exist. But excuses thrive in difficulty, because difficulty gives people reasons to quit, and excuses sound smartest when things are hard. Hard reveals who wants it and who just likes the idea of it. There's a difference between liking the idea of success and loving the process. Hard exposes that difference quickly. Hard also demands self-control. You can't indulge every impulse and survive difficulty. You have to delay gratification. Say no. Stay focused. Easy lets you do whatever you want and still get by. Hard doesn't. That's why hard builds maturity. Maturity isn't about age. It's about restraint. If it was easy, restraint wouldn't matter. But because it's hard, discipline becomes a divider. Hard also builds perspective. When you've struggled, you appreciate progress more. When you've endured, you value outcomes more. Easy creates entitlement. Hard creates gratitude. Gratitude keeps you grounded. Most people want easy because they think easy equals happy, but easy doesn't fulfill you. Easy entertains you. Hard fulfills you. Fulfillment comes from growth. Growth comes from resistance. That's the trade. If it was easy, it wouldn't change you. But the goal isn't just to get something. It's to become someone, and becoming requires pressure, certainty. Hard is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. Becoming someone you haven't been before. That transition feels awkward, unstable, messy. That's not failure. That's evolution. If it was easy, you wouldn't need belief. But hard requires faith. Faith that the effort will pay off. Faith that the pain has purpose. Faith that you're capable of more than you feel right now. Faith grows in difficulty. Hard doesn't mean impossible. It means selective. It selects for patience, for discipline, for resilience, for commitment. That's why everybody doesn't do it. And that's exactly why it's worth doing. Most people are waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel motivated. While they wait, life keeps moving without them. Opportunities pass, time passes, potential rusts, because motivation is unreliable. It shows up when it wants to, not when you need it. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks what needs to be done. That's the difference between people who talk about success, people who live it. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is intentional. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a system. The system. Motivation might get you started, but discipline is the only thing that keeps you going when the spark fades. And it always fades. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your discipline. That's why so many people start strong and finish nowhere. They wait for the music, the hype, the perfect mood. But life doesn't care about your mood. Responsibilities don't pause because you don't feel like it. Dreams don't wait until you're inspired. Discipline understands that feelings are temporary, but decisions are permanent. Winners don't wake up every day excited. They wake up committed. They don't negotiate with discomfort. They don't debate with laziness. They already decided who they are and what they do, and they act accordingly. That's power. Most people think discipline is punishment. It's not. Discipline is freedom. It frees you from excuses. It frees you from inconsistency. It frees you from the emotional roller coaster of motivation. When you're disciplined, you don't need to hype yourself up. You just move, and movement creates momentum. The problem is discipline requires sacrifice up front. Motivation feels good at the start. Discipline feels heavy at the start. Motivation gives you dopamine. Discipline gives you results. One feels better now. The other pays off later. Most people choose now. They choose comfort. They choose convenience. They choose what feels good in the moment. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. That choice is uncomfortable. That's why it's rare. Everybody wants confidence, but confidence is built through discipline. You trust yourself when you do what you said you would do, especially when you didn't feel like it. Every disciplined action is a vote for your future self. Every excuse is a vote against it. You don't become disciplined overnight. You become disciplined through repetition, through small decisions made consistently, through showing up on days when motivation is nowhere to be found. And those days matter the most. Anybody can perform when they're excited. Few can perform when they're tired, bored, frustrated, or discouraged. That's where discipline separates the serious from the spectators. Discipline is doing the work even when nobody is watching. Especially when nobody is watching. Because results don't care about your intentions. They care about your actions. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they're inconsistent. They rely on how they feel instead of what they decided. They let temporary emotions override long-term goals. Discipline doesn't ignore emotions. It just doesn't obey them. You can be tired and disciplined. You can be scared and disciplined. Discipline. You can be unmotivated and disciplined. That's strength. Motivation says, I'll do it when I feel like it. Discipline says, I'll do it because I said I would. And saying you'll do something means nothing if you don't follow through. Your word to yourself matters. Every time you break it, you weaken your self-respect. Every time you keep it, you strengthen your identity. People with discipline walk differently. They talk differently. They handle pressure differently. Not because life is easier for them, but because they trust themselves. Self-trust is built in uncomfortable moments. Discipline also removes confusion. When you rely on motivation, you're always asking questions. Should I? Am I ready? Is this the right time? Discipline removes the debate. You already decided. That clarity saves energy. Indecision is exhausting. Discipline is efficient. That's why disciplined people seem calm under pressure. They're not guessing. They're executing. Motivation wants instant results. Discipline understands delayed gratification. Motivation quits when results are slow. Discipline keeps working because it knows progress compounds. Small, disciplined actions repeated daily outperform massive, motivated efforts done occasionally. That's not exciting. That's effective. Most people want dramatic change without daily discipline. They want transformation without routine. But routine is where identity is shaped. What you do every day is who you become. Discipline is not about being extreme. It's about being consistent. You don't need to dominate every day. You need to show up every day, even at 70%, even at 50%. Something is always better than nothing. If it's consistent, motivation tells you wait for the perfect day. Discipline tells you to work with the day you have. That's how progress actually happens. Discipline also protects you from regret. Regret doesn't come from trying and failing. It comes from knowing you didn't give it your best because you didn't feel like it. That feeling lingers. Effort heals regret. Avoidance feeds it. People who rely on motivation are always starting over, always restarting, always getting back on track. Discipline keeps you on track, even when you drift a little. And drifting is normal. Quitting is optional. Discipline doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. You will miss days. You will mess up. You will fall short. Discipline doesn't say you failed, stop. It says you slipped, continue. Motivation shames you when you fall. Discipline steadies you. That's maturity. Discipline also builds resilience. When you train yourself to act regardless of mood, life stops controlling you. External circumstances lose power. You become internally driven. That's freedom. The world will not always encourage you. People will doubt you. Progress will be slow. Results will be invisible for long periods. Motivation will disappear. Discipline stays. And that's why discipline is scary, because it removes excuses. You can't blame your mood. You can't blame inspiration. You can't blame timing. Discipline puts responsibility on you. And responsibility is heavy, but responsibility is also empowering. When you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting because you decided, everything changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a builder of outcomes. Builders don't wait. Builders work. Discipline doesn't mean you never rest. It means rest is intentional, not an escape. You recover to perform, not to avoid. Motivation rests first and hopes later. Discipline works first and rests without guilt. That difference matters. Discipline also compounds confidence. Every small promise kept strengthens your belief in yourself. Over time, that belief becomes unshakable, not because life is easy, but because you've proven you can endure. Endurance is trained, not felt. Motivation might introduce you to the journey. Discipline carries you through it. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You already know what to do. You don't need more information. You don't need more inspiration. You need execution. Discipline is execution. You don't need to feel ready to be disciplined. You become ready by being disciplined. That's the paradox. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Start acting like the person you said you wanted to become. That identity is built through daily discipline, not emotional highs. Every day you choose discipline over excuses, you separate yourself. You become uncommon. You become reliable. You become dangerous in the best way. Because disciplined people are hard to stop. They don't quit when it gets boring. They don't quit when it gets hard. They don't quit when it gets quiet. They keep going, not because they feel like it, but because they decided that most people underestimate how much their environment controls them. They think success is just about willpower, mindset, and hustle. But if your surroundings are weak, your discipline will constantly be under attack. Environment shapes behavior long before motivation ever gets a vote. If you stay in places that reward comfort, comfort will become your default. If you stay around people who normalize quitting, quitting will start to feel reasonable. You don't rise in the wrong room. You survive in it. Your environment is not neutral. It's either pushing you forward or pulling you backward. There is no middle ground. Every conversation you hear, every habit you witness, every standard you tolerate is quietly training. And most people are being trained for average without realizing it. If the people around you complain more than they create, you will slowly lose your urgency. If the people around you avoid accountability, excuses will start sounding logical. If the people around you settle, settling will feel safe. That's not weakness, that's human nature. You become what you repeatedly see. You adopt what you repeatedly hear. You adjust to what you repeatedly tolerate. And the dangerous part is this. Toxic environments don't always look toxic. Sometimes they look familiar, comfortable, social, fun. Sometimes they look like family, friends, coworkers, people you've known forever. But familiarity does not equal alignment. Some environments love you, but they don't grow you. They support who you are, not who you're trying to become. And if you stay too long, they will unconsciously fight your growth. Not out of hate, but out of fear. Because your change forces them to confront their stagnation. Growth makes insecure environments uncomfortable. That's why people start acting different when you start leveling up. They joke more. They joke more. They doubt more. They minimize more. They call your discipline and doing too much. They label your ambition as unrealistic. Not because you're wrong, but because your effort exposes their lack of it. And if you're not careful, you'll dim your light to stay accepted. Most people don't quit because they're incapable. They quit because their environment makes quitting feel normal. They sit around people who normalize procrastination, complain about the grind, and laugh at discipline. Over time, that energy wears you down. You don't need enemies when your environment is comfortable with mediocrity. The truth is, growth requires distance, not always forever, but long enough for your habits to change, your standards to rise, your identity to solidify. Because when you're building something new, you're vulnerable. And weak environments attack vulnerability. You can't plant seeds in toxic soil and blame the seed. People who win are intentional about where they spend their time and who they spend it with. They don't let just anyone speak into their life. They don't let just any opinion carry weight. They guard their mental space like it matters, because it does. Your environment is either reinforcing discipline or eroding it. If you're trying to change your life but still hanging around people who avoid growth, you're fighting uphill every day, not because you're weak, but because you're surrounded by resistance. Resistance drains energy. That's why some people feel tired, even when they're not doing much. They're exhausted from swimming against the current of their environment, constantly explaining themselves, constantly defending their goals, constantly justifying their effort. That's not sustainable. At some point, you have to choose alignment over approval. And that choice hurts because changing environments often means changing relationships, changing routines, changing what feels normal. And the human brain hates unfamiliarity. It prefers known pain over unknown growth. That's why people stay stuck. They choose predictable frustration over uncertain progress. But growth doesn't happen where you're celebrated for staying the same. It happens where you're challenged to rise. The right environment doesn't coddle you. It stretches you. It doesn't excuse your laziness. It calls it out. It doesn't normalize your bad habits. It disrupts them. Strong environments demand more from you. That's uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid them. They say, I don't fit in. They say, even this, it's not my vibe. What they really mean is that environment requires a version of me I haven't committed to becoming. And instead of rising, they retreat. Your environment should make you slightly uncomfortable, not unsafe, but stretched. If you're always the smartest, most disciplined, most driven person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You don't grow by being the standard. You grow by being surrounded by higher standard. That's why winners seek rooms that challenge them. Rooms where effort is normal, where discipline is respected, where growth is expected. Those rooms don't always cheer loudly, but they sharpen you. And here's the truth people avoid. Sometimes the environment you need won't clap for you at first. It won't validate you immediately. It will test you. Because strong environments don't hand out approval easily. They watch what you do, not what you say. That's good. Because environments that give instant validation often don't demand real growth. Your environment also includes what you consume. Not just people, but content, music, social media, news, entertainment. All of it feeds your mindset. If you constantly consume negativity, drama, and distraction, don't be surprised when focus is hard. If you constantly watch people chase pleasure, don't be surprised when discipline feels boring. What you feed your mind becomes your mental environment. And most people are mentally surrounded by noise. Noise kills clarity. Clarity fuels action. That's why disciplined people are selected. They don't consume everything available. They choose what aligns with who they're becoming. They protect their environment because they respect their future. Changing your environment doesn't mean abandoning everyone. It means redefining access. Not everyone gets a front row seat to your life. Not everyone gets to influence your decisions. That's not arrogance. That's wisdom. Because your environment will eventually win if you don't manage it. You can't out-hustle a toxic environment forever. You'll either adapt or burn out. That's why people relapse. Reads are over and over again. They change goals, but not environments. They try to level up while staying surrounded by the same energy that kept them stuck. That math doesn't work. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need the right people to support your discipline, not sabotage it. You need spaces where effort is respected, not mocked. where growth is normal. How weird. And yes, that might mean loneliness for a season. Loneliness is often a transition space between environments. That season hurts, but it's temporary. Staying stuck lasts longer. Strong environments don't just push you, they protect you. They normalize effort so you don't feel crazy for trying. They make discipline feel doable because you see it modeled consistently. Environment turns effort into identity. When discipline is around you, it becomes part of who you are. When quitting is around you, quitting becomes easy. This is why some people change drastically when they move cities, change jobs, join new communities, or enter new seasons. It's not magic, it's environment. Same person, different inputs, different output. If you want a different life, you need different surroundings, different conversations, different expectations. That doesn't make you disloyal, it makes you intentional. And understand this, your environment doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be aligned. Even one strong voice can counteract 10 weak ones. Even one disciplined routine can disrupt chaos, but you have to choose it. Nobody accidentally ends up in a growth environment. You seek it, you earn it, you stay consistent until you belong. And belonging comes after effort, not before. The environments that shape winners are not always comfortable, but they are honest. They don't let you lie to yourself. They don't let you hide behind excuses. They reflect back who you really are, and that reflection forces growth. If you stay in environments that allow you to stay small, you will. If you step into environments that demand more, you'll either rise or leave. That choice defines your future. Because your environment will always vote on who you become. The only question is whether you're paying attention or letting it decide for you. At some point in your life, you have to accept a hard truth. Nobody is coming to save you. There's no perfect moment on the way. No magical opportunity that removes all fear. No person who shows up and does the work for you. Waiting for rescue is one of the most dangerous habits you can develop because it feels hopeful while quietly stealing your future. Most people aren't stuck because they lack ability. They're stuck because they're waiting to be chosen, waiting to be noticed, waiting for permission, waiting for conditions to improve. And while they wait, time keeps moving. Time does not negotiate. The idea that someone is coming to fix things is comforting. It allows you to delay responsibility. It gives you an excuse to stay still. But comfort is expensive. It costs growth. It costs momentum. It costs self-respect. The moment you accept full responsibility for your life is the moment your power returns. Responsibility is heavy, but it's also freeing. Because when you stop waiting for someone else, you stop feeling helpless. You stop being reactive. You stop blaming circumstances, people, systems, or timing. You may not be responsible for how you started, but you are responsible for how you finish. Nobody told you it would be fair. Nobody promised it would be easy. And nobody owes you a breakthrough. That's not pessimism. That's reality. In reality, when accepted, is empowering. The belief that someone is coming to save you keeps you passive. The belief that it's on you makes you active. Waiting feels productive, but it's not. It's disguised avoidance. It feels like patience, but it's fear in a nicer outfit. Fear of failing. Fear of discovering your limits. So you wait. You wait for confidence. You wait for confidence. You wait for clarity. You wait for motivation, but confidence comes from action. Clarity comes from movement. Motivation comes after you start. Nothing arrives first. Most people want guarantees before commitment. They want proof before effort. But life doesn't work like that. Life rewards courage, not certainty. There is no perfect time. There's only now and later. And later is always more expensive. The longer you wait, the heavier the fear becomes. The story grows, the doubt multiplies. Inaction feeds anxiety, action quiets it. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means owning your next step. It means asking, what can I control? And focusing there. You can't control the past. You can't control other people. You can't control the world. But you can control your effort, your attitude, your consistency, your response. That's enough. People who wait for rescue outsource their power. They look for validation. They look for permission. They look for approval. And when it doesn't come, they feel rejected. People who accept responsibility don't need permission. They move, and movement creates opportunities. Opportunities are rarely found. They're created. Nobody is coming to knock on your door and hand you the life you want. That life has to be built brick by brick, decision by decision, discipline by discipline, meaning because responsibility removes excuses. You can't hide behind bad luck anymore. You can't blame the system forever. You can't say, if only someone had helped me. At some point, you have to say, this is on me. That moment hurts, but it also heals. Because once you accept responsibility, you stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start acting like an architect of outcomes. Architects don't wait for perfect weather. They build with what they have. Most people overestimate how ready they need to be to start. You don't need confidence to act. You gain confidence by acting. You don't need clarity to move. You gain clarity by moving. Waiting for readiness is like waiting for muscles before going to the gym. It doesn't work. Responsibility also means accepting that nobody will care about your goals as much as you do. And that's not sad. It's normal. Everyone is fighting their own battles. When you stop expecting others to prioritize your dream, you stop being disappointed. You stop resenting people for not showing up the way you want them to. You free them and yourself. This mindset also protects you from entitlement. The belief that you deserve something without earning it poisons effort. It creates frustration, creates anger, creates blame. Responsibility replaces entitlement with ownership. Ownership says, if I want more, I must become more. And becoming more is uncomfortable. Nobody is coming to save you from discomfort. Growth requires it. If someone removed every obstacle from your path, they would also remove the lessons that make you capable of sustaining success. That's why rescue fantasies are dangerous. They promise relief without transformation. But relief doesn't change you. Responsibility does. When you stop waiting to be saved, you stop waiting to be perfect. You allow yourself to start messy, to fail publicly, to learn in real time. That's where real progress happens. Most people don't fail because they try and lose. They fail because they never try at all. They live in preparation mode forever. Planning, thinking, waiting. Planning feels safe. Execution feels risky, but risk is the entry fee to anything meaningful. Responsibility also demands consistency. You can't just show up when it's convenient. You can't blame external factors every time it gets hard. You learn to adapt instead of excuse. Adaptation is power. You don't need ideal condition. You need persistence. You don't need permission. You need courage. You don't need saving. You need resolve. Resolve to move even when it's uncomfortable. Resolve to keep going even when support is minimal. Resolve to carry your own weight. And understand that accepting responsibility doesn't mean you can't ask for help. It means you don't depend on it. Help becomes a bonus, not a requirement. That distinction matters. People who wait for rescue often reject responsibility because they're afraid of failure. They think if they don't try, they can't lose. But not trying is a loss, a quiet one, a slow one, but a loss all the same. Years pass, opportunities fade, regret grows. Responsibility might lead to failure, but it also leads to growth. And growth is always worth the risk. When you accept responsibility, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do next? That question changes everything. It shifts you from complaint to creation, from frustration to focus, from helplessness to action. Nobody is coming to save you, and that's not a curse. It's a challenge, an invitation to step into your strength, to discover what you're capable of when excuses are gone. You are more resourceful than you think, more resilient than you feel, more capable than you've proven so far. But you won't discover that waiting. You discover it by stepping forward without guarantees, by owning your choices, by carrying responsibility instead of avoiding it. And the moment you do, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for your life to change, and you start changing it. That most people want big results, but they refuse to build big habits. They chase dramatic change while ignoring the small, unglamorous actions that actually shape outcomes. They want transformation without routine. They want success without structure. And then they wonder why nothing sticks. Big results don't come from big moments. They come from small decisions repeated daily. That's the part nobody wants to hear, because small habits don't feel powerful. They don't look impressive. They don't give you instant validation, but they quietly determine everything. Your life right now is the result of habits you repeated, consciously or unconsciously. Not one decision, not one lucky break. Patterns, repetition, consistency. And if you want a different outcome, you don't need a miracle. You need different habits. People love intensity because it feels productive. They'll work hard for a week, go all in for a month, then disappear. They call it burnout, but it's not burnout, it's inconsistency, it's boring. Consistency is repetitive. Consistency doesn't get applause. That's why most people avoid it. But boring done daily beats exciting done occasionally every time. Small habits compound, not immediately, but inevitably. At first, it feels like nothing is happening. That's where most people quit. They don't understand that habits work underground before they show up above ground. The results lag behind the work. If you judge your habits by immediate outcomes, you'll abandon the very things that would have changed your life. Small habits are not about motivation. They're about identity. Every habit is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you show up, you reinforce that identity. Every time you skip, you weaken it. You don't rise to big results. You sink to the level of your daily habits. People often say they're waiting for inspiration to change their habits. But habits don't require inspiration. They require intention. You don't need to feel like it. You need to decide. Decision creates structure. Structure creates consistency. Consistency creates results. The problem is, small habits don't feel urgent. Missing one day doesn't seem like a big deal. And that's how people drift, not through massive failure, but through tiny neglect. Skipping once is nothing. Skipping repeatedly becomes a pattern. Patterns become identity. That's how potential disappears quietly. Big habits aren't born big. They start small, smaller than you think. Smaller than you respect. 5 minutes, 1 page, 1 rep, 1 conversation, 1 choice. People underestimate how powerful small done daily really is. They want to overhaul their life in a week, change everything at once. That's not discipline, that's emotional. Emotional change fades when the emotion does. Habitual change stays. Small habits also lower resistance. Your brain doesn't fight small actions the way it fights big ones. You don't argue with yourself about brushing your teeth. It's automatic. That's the goal. Make success automatic. Big results come from habits that require less thinking, not more motivation. The most successful people in the world are not constantly hyped. They're consistent. They build systems that support their goals, even on low energy days. Systems beat willpower. Willpower is limited. Habits are renewable. Every time you rely on willpower, you're gambling. Every time you rely on habits, you're investing. Investments grow slowly, then suddenly. People get frustrated because they don't see progress. They don't realize they're in the accumulation phase. They're stacking reps, building skills, strengthening discipline. But because it doesn't feel exciting, they assume it's not working. Small habits also build trust with yourself. When you keep small promises daily, you start believing in yourself again. That belief compounds into confidence. Confidence doesn't come from big wins. It comes from keeping your word consistently. Most people don't trust themselves, and they don't realize it. They say they'll do things and don't. Over time, that breaks self-respect. Small habits repair that relationship. You don't need to dominate your day. You need to win it quietly. One habit at a time. People also fail because they chase someone else's habits instead of building habits that fit their life. They copy routines without understanding context. Habits must be realistic to be repeatable. Consistency beats perfection. A habit you can sustain beats a habit you admire. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. if you can't sustain it. You don't need to train for hours if you won't repeat it. You need habits that fit your reality but stretch it slightly. Stretch, not snap. Small habits are also every single day. There's a fight happening inside you, not a loud one, not a dramatic one. A quiet, relentless battle between two versions of yourself. One wants comfort, the other wants growth. One wants ease, the other wants excellence. One wants to feel good now, the other wants to become something greater later, and every day, one of them wins. The outcome of your life is determined by which version you feed most consistent. The comfort-driven version of you is persuasive. It sounds reasonable. It tells you to rest a little longer. to take it easy today, to start tomorrow, to enjoy yourself because you deserve it. It doesn't sound like an enemy, it sounds like self-care. But comfort, when left unchecked, becomes sabotage. Comfort doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't ask you to change. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because it keeps you exactly where you are, while convincing you that you're being kind to yourself. The greatness-driven version of you is quieter. It doesn't beg. It doesn't rush you. It just reminds you of what you said you wanted. It reminds you of the standard you set. It asks you to choose discipline over desire. That version doesn't promise immediate relief. It promises long-term fulfillment. And most people ignore it. Because comfort speaks in feelings. Greatness speaks in responsibility. Every time you choose comfort, you strengthen that version of yourself. Every time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce the identity that runs from challenge. Over time, that version becomes dominant, not because it's right, but because it's fed. What you feed grows. What you starve weakens. You don't accidentally become disciplined. You don't accidentally become resilient. You don't accidentally become great. You become what you repeatedly practice. And practice happens in small moments, when the alarm goes off, when no one is watching, when excuses are available. Those moments decide which version wins. Most people think they lose this battle in big moments. They don't. They lose it in tiny decisions that seem insignificant at the time. Skipping once, indulging once, quitting early once. Those choices don't feel dangerous, but they accumulate. Comfort compounds just like discipline does. That's the scary part. The comfort-driven version of you never said, quit forever. It says, adjust today. And today becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes a pattern. Patterns become identity. Then one day you look up and realize you've drifted far from who you wanted to be. The greatness-driven version of you also compounds. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it. Every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you choose effort over ease, that version gets stronger. At first, it's uncomfortable. It feels forced. Because growth is unfamiliar. But over time, discipline becomes normal. Hard things feel manageable. And the comfort voice loses influence. And that's how transformation happens. This battle is not about talent. It's about feeding. It's not about intelligence. It's about habits. It's not about desire. It's about consistency. You don't need to kill the comfort-driven version of you. You need to control it. Comfort has a place, but it must be earned and contained. Uncontrolled comfort takes over. That's why boundaries matter. Greatness requires structure. Comfort thrives in chaos. If your days have no structure, comfort will dominate. You'll default to what feels good. Structure forces intention. It creates space for discipline to operate. You don't rise to greatness accidentally. You design for it. Most people think greatness is about doing extraordinary things. It's not. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. Consistency. And consistency is what comfort hates. Comfort wants variety. Comfort wants convenience. Comfort wants flexibility. Greatness wants standard. Greatness wants standards, limit options. And limiting options feels restrictive to people addicted to comfort. But freedom doesn't come from unlimited choice. It comes from self-control. Self-control is what allows you to choose your future instead of your feelings. The comfort-driven version of you avoids pain. The greatness-driven version understands pain as part of growth. Not all pain, but necessary pain. Necessary pain builds strength. Avoided pain builds weakness. Every time you choose comfort to avoid discomfort, you teach yourself that discomfort is dangerous. And that belief shrinks your capacity. You become fragile. Every time you choose effort, discomfort, you expand your capacity. You become resilient. Resilience is built, not wished for. This internal battle also affects your confidence. People who consistently choose comfort lose trust in themselves. They say things and don't follow through. Over time, they stop believing their own words. People who feed the greatness-driven version build self-trust. They do what they say even when it's hard. That trust shows up as confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It's quiet certainty. The comfort version of you is loud in the moment. It screams when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're emotional. It uses those states against you. The greatness version waits. It speaks in reminders, in discipline, in standard. And here's the key. Whichever voice you obey in moments of weakness becomes your default voice. Weak moments are training moments. Most people think discipline is about strength. It's about training. Training your responses, training your defaults, training your identity. Identity is the deepest level of this battle. You don't act based on what you want. You act based on who you believe you are. If you believe you're someone who quits when it's hard, you will. If you believe you're someone who shows up no matter what, you will. Belief is built through evidence. Evidence is built through action. Feeding the greatness-driven version gives you evidence. Over time, you stop seeing discipline as effort and start seeing it as who you are. That's when things change. The comfort-driven version of you doesn't disappear. It waits. It looks for moments of fatigue, stress, disappointment. That's when it tries to take control. That's why awareness matters. You have to recognize the voice when it shows up. Not fight it emotionally, but override it with standards. Standards remove debate. When you have clear standards, you don't negotiate with comfort. You already know what you do. That clarity is powerful. Comfort thrives in gray areas. Greatness thrives in clarity. This battle is fought daily, not occasionally. There is no finish line where you no longer have to choose. But the good news is, the more you feed the right version, the easier the choice becomes. Discipline gets lighter with repetition. Comfort gets weaker with boundaries. People often wait for the battle to end before committing. It never ends. Commitment is the strategy. You don't need to win perfectly. You need to win consistently. Some days you'll choose comfort and you'll feel it immediately. That's not failure. That's feedback. You return. You recommit. You keep feeding the version you want to become. Greatness is not fragile. It's forgiving. If you stay honest, this is not about being extreme. It's about being intentional, about recognizing that every choice feeds something and that something eventually takes over. You are not confused. You know which version you've been feeding. Your results tell the story. If you don't like the story, change the feeding. Feed discipline. Feed consistency. Feed responsibility and starve excuses. The version of you that wants greatness isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for loyalty. Loyalty in small moments. Loyalty when it's inconvenient. Loyalty when no one will know if you quit. That loyalty builds a life you don't have to escape from. Every day the fight resets. And every day you choose. Not once, not occasionally. Every day, and the version that wins most often is the one you become.